Welcome, dear friends, to a gentle journey into creativity and calm. This is TERAFLORA Studio, a place where stories of the garden unfold quietly, where discarded things find new life, and where imagination grows alongside roots and blossoms. Here, we don't just see objects as they are, we see what they can become. An old teapot becomes a fountain, a broken pot turns into a fairy village, and bottles once forgotten shimmer again in the light. Each idea is not only about beauty, but about slowing down, observing, and finding magic in the ordinary. Before we continue, let me share with clarity. This content has been carefully crafted with the assistance of AI. It is important to state this openly, because creativity in our time often blends human warmth with digital guidance. What you hear today is the result of both. A partnership between imagination and technology, designed to inspire your hands and heart. As you listen, imagine yourself walking through a quiet garden path, sunlight filtering through leaves, the air filled with the fragrance of herbs and blossoms. Each idea we share is not just a project, but an invitation to notice small wonders, to create with what is near, and to see possibility in what others might overlook. If these stories bring you a sense of peace or spark a desire to create, I warmly invite you to subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio. In joining us, you become part of a community that believes in gentle beauty, in sustainability, and in the joy of turning the simplest things into moments of wonder. Together, we will continue to craft spaces where nature and imagination meet, and where every day holds the promise of quiet magic. In the language of gardens, even the smallest relic can sing again. Imagine walking into a quiet corner of your backyard and hearing a soft trickle, as if the earth itself were whispering. There, resting among moss and ferns, stands a porcelain teapot leaning gently forward. From its spout, a ribbon of water falls into a waiting cup, and then another, creating a chain of gentle cascades. This is not just a fountain. It is a story retold in water and light, a memory of warm mornings when tea was shared, now rewritten as a lullaby for the garden. The beauty of this project lies not in complexity, but in tenderness. To recreate it yourself, you don't need grand tools or costly materials. An old teapot, perhaps one you thought too chipped to keep, becomes the centerpiece. Gather a few sturdy teacups, a small submersible pump, and a shallow basin or pot to catch the overflow. The pump will lift the water back to the top, keeping the cycle alive, while gravity performs the rest of the magic. Pebbles or smooth stones can be tucked around the cups, hiding the mechanics and grounding the scene in nature. What makes this design so captivating is how it marries sound and sight. The soft drip and spill of water creates a rhythm that calms the heart, while sunlight dances on the droplets like tiny jewels. Position the fountain where light can strike it in the morning or late afternoon, and you'll notice how each hour paints the water differently. Around the base, plant shade-loving ferns, creeping thyme, or even moss to amplify the sense of a secret woodland spring. Beyond its charm, this fountain also draws life. Birds may pause to sip, butterflies may circle the damp edges, and suddenly your backyard feels like it breathes with more than flowers. Children who see it often linger, enchanted by the simple wonder of water moving through everyday objects. The true joy of the teapot fountain is not perfection but presence. Every droplet tells you that beauty can flow from what we merely discard. With your own hands, you can turn something ordinary into a stream of timeless delight. And each time the cups overflow, they remind you that creativity, like water, is meant to keep moving, spilling quietly into the spaces of daily life. Every garden holds its secrets, and sometimes those secrets begin in the smallest fragments. Picture a humble clay pot resting in sunlight. Its surface, once plain and unremarkable, now glitters with tiny shards of old CDs. Each piece catches the light differently, one flashing violet, another bending into green, another scattering into gold. Together, they form the curve of a crescent moon, a mirror for the sky cradled in the soil. This mosaic planter is a song of transformation. What once carried digital music and memories now reflects rainbows across the garden path. It's proof that even objects considered obsolete can shine with a new story. And what's remarkable is how achievable this idea is. Anyone with a few unused CDs, a strong adhesive, and a little patience can bring this shimmering beauty to life. Begin by carefully cutting or breaking the CDs into irregular shards. Their layered plastic will reveal different textures, some matte, some brilliantly reflective. Arrange them on the planter's surface, experimenting with patterns before you commit with glue. For a celestial effect, shape them into a crescent moon or even a constellation. Once the pieces are fixed, fill the gaps with dark grout or paint, which makes the reflections stand out more vividly against the earthy clay. As the planter sits beneath the sun, you'll notice how it changes with the hours. Morning light creates soft pastel glimmers, while afternoon sun scatters bold rainbows across nearby stones. At dusk, the planter holds onto a gentle glow, as if it remembers the day's brilliance and doesn't want to let it go. Place it near pathways where light can move freely, and you'll discover how every step reveals a new flicker of color. Beyond its sparkle, this DIY holds a deeper gift: perspective. It teaches us that beauty isn't always about starting fresh. Sometimes it's about reimagining what we already have. Old CDs, once destined for the bin, become a conversation piece, a beacon of light in a corner of green. Children love the magic of rainbow reflections, while adults often pause, surprised at how nostalgia can glitter so vividly. The CD mosaic planter doesn't just hold flowers. It holds the reminder that nothing is ever wasted if we're willing to see its second life. And in that glimmer, in that crescent of silver and color, your garden gains not only decoration, but a fragment of the sky itself. Sometimes it is the broken things that carry the most wonder. Imagine a clay pot, once whole, that slipped, cracked, and seemed destined for the trash. Yet in its fragments, new worlds appear. Lean the pieces together and suddenly the broken edges form terraces. Each level a stage for moss, succulents, and tiny blossoms. A pebble pathway winds upward like an ancient stairway, and at the top rests a small cottage, as if a family of unseen fairies lives quietly within. This broken pot fairy terrace is more than decoration. It is an act of transformation. By using what looks ruined, you create a miniature kingdom that feels alive, intimate, and endlessly charming. And the best part is, it's easier to make than it first appears. Start with a large terracotta pot that has cracked or fractured. Place the largest shard inside as a divider, then stack smaller pieces to form steps and ledges. Fill the gaps with potting soil, pressing moss or creeping succulents into the crevices. Pebbles can be arranged as pathways, leading the eye upward through each level. Adding small figurines, tiny cottages, doors, or lanterns brings personality to the design. If you prefer a natural look, simply let plants be the characters. Thyme creeping like ivy, miniature ferns curling into stairways, or little stone piles that resemble watchtowers. Children will be enchanted, peering inside as though expecting fairies to peek back. Adults, too, are drawn to its story, reminded that beauty often hides in imperfection. The placement of your fairy terrace matters. Nestle it among other pots in a shaded corner, where moss can thrive and the atmosphere feels secretive. Or let it sit as a centerpiece on a patio table, sparking conversation every time guests visit. With regular misting and a touch of imagination, the pot feels less like a craft project and more like a discovered relic from a hidden world. The broken pot becomes whole in a different way. Instead of lamenting the crack, you celebrate it, reshaping the flaw into a stairway for wonder. And when morning dew beads on the leaves, glistening like jewels, you'll see that this fairy village doesn't need to be grand. It only needs to be tender. It is proof that in every break lies the chance for rebirth, and in every garden, the possibility of story. There is something deeply nostalgic about a suitcase. Once it carried journeys, clothes folded with care, and letters tucked away for faraway places. Now imagine that same suitcase resting in your garden, no longer a vessel of travel, but a cradle for life. Its leather is worn, its brass clasps dulled, yet when opened, a soft world of green spills out. Moss thick as velvet, tiny ferns curling upward, blossoms leaning toward the light as though listening for stories in the breeze. The magic of the suitcase garden lies in its surprise. It is both familiar and unexpected, ordinary yet whimsical. Setting one up requires nothing more than a vintage or old suitcase, some potting soil, and plants willing to nestle into small spaces. Begin by lining the inside with a waterproof layer. Plastic sheeting or a heavy garbage bag will keep moisture from seeping into the fabric. Add soil, pressing it into the corners, and then choose your plants. Shade-loving varieties such as moss, ferns, or impatiens work beautifully if the suitcase will sit in a cooler corner. If placed in sunlight, opt for succulents, thyme, or creeping sedums that thrive in dry soil. Arrange small pebbles to create pathways, or tuck in miniature figurines to spark imagination. Some gardeners even craft tiny winding trails, making the suitcase feel like a secret diorama of a world within a world. The joy of this project is in how personal it can become. Each suitcase reflects its gardener's story, whether it feels like a mossy woodland retreat or a cheerful burst of colorful blooms. Beyond aesthetics, the suitcase secret garden teaches something tender. Stillness can be just as meaningful as movement. A suitcase designed to travel now stays rooted, yet continues its purpose of carrying something precious. Instead of maps and memories of faraway lands, it holds green life that whispers of renewal right where you are. Set it against a wall, under a shaded pergola, or even as a centerpiece on your patio table. Guests will pause, drawn in by the unexpected transformation, and children will lean close, convinced it hides a fairy's doorstep. The suitcase does not erase its history, it deepens it. And as plants spill gently over the edges, you'll find yourself smiling at the simple truth. Sometimes the greatest journeys happen not in miles, but in the quiet blooming of a garden at your feet. When day fades into evening, the garden begins to whisper in a different voice. The leaves rustle softer, the air cools, and shadows stretch across the paths. And then, just as twilight settles, the archway awakens. From its wooden frame dangle glass jars, each one glowing with a soft golden light, as though fireflies have gathered inside to guide your steps. Passing beneath feels like walking into a story, where night is no longer empty but full of quiet wonder. This solar firefly archway is more than just decoration. It is a threshold into magic. Built from simple bent branches tied together, the arch has a humble elegance, almost as if it grew naturally from the earth. The jars, ordinary in daylight, transform at dusk. With solar-powered lights tucked inside, they capture the sun's energy and return it in the form of a gentle, flickering glow. Creating your own archway is wonderfully achievable. Begin with sturdy branches or poles that can be anchored firmly into the ground. Bind them together at the top with rope or twine, allowing vines or climbing plants like jasmine or morning glory to weave around them over time. For the jars, mason jars or recycled glass containers work beautifully. Attach solar lids or small LED fairy lights inside, securing them with wire so they hang evenly across the frame. The placement of your arch is important. Position it along a pathway where people naturally walk, or use it as a doorway into a special corner of the garden. During the day, it looks rustic and simple. By night, it becomes alive, casting golden halos across petals and stones. Children will pause beneath it, enchanted, while adults will linger, surprised at how something so modest creates such atmosphere. Beyond beauty, this project also invites sustainability. Using solar power means no wires, no wasteful energy, only the gentle recycling of sunlight into nightlight. And with jars repurposed from kitchens, the arch tells a story of resourcefulness, how everyday objects can find a second life as keepers of wonder. As you pass under its glow, you realize that night need not mean the end of the garden's charm. Instead, the garden simply changes language, speaking now in whispers of light. And in those quiet, glowing jars, you discover a truth. Magic often comes not from what is grand, but from what is made gently, by hand, with love. Once upon a time, the typewriter spoke in clattering rhythms, each keystroke leaving an imprint of thought. Today, its words have changed. Between the silent keys, moss has taken root, soft and green, spreading where fingers once danced. Tiny blossoms rise from the carriage, and ivy slips across the frame, turning steel into soil and memory into growth. Standing before it, you realize the story hasn't ended. It has simply been rewritten in a gentler script. The vintage typewriter moss planter is a perfect union of nostalgia and nature. It invites us to see beauty not in utility, but in reinvention. And the best part is how simple it is to create. Begin with a typewriter that no longer functions, perhaps one rescued from a thrift store or attic. Clean the surface, but don't erase all its age, the rust and wear tell part of its story. Line the body with a waterproof layer, such as plastic sheeting, to protect the metal from constant moisture. Then fill it with a lightweight potting mix. Moss is the heart of this design. You can collect patches from shaded areas outdoors or purchase it from a garden shop. Press it gently into the keys and spaces where soil rests. Add small shade-loving plants, tiny ferns, violets, or succulents, tucking them into the carriage and ribbon area. Over time, the greenery will settle into the machine's crevices, softening its mechanical lines into something organic and alive. Placement matters. A shaded garden corner, a covered porch, or even an indoor windowsill with indirect light will keep the moss lush and vibrant. Mist it regularly with water to maintain its velvety texture. If you wish, add small details. A miniature bird figurine perched on the spacebar, or a poetic sign beside it that reads, "Stories still grow here." This planter is not just a craft, it is a meditation. It reminds us that words fade, but stories continue. They continue in moss that spreads slowly across iron, in flowers that bloom where ink once flowed, and in the quiet beauty of objects given new life. The typewriter does not look abandoned. It looks fulfilled. It no longer writes on paper, but on the canvas of time, season after season. And every green shoot that emerges tells us that creativity, like nature, never truly disappears. It simply changes form, waiting for us to notice. Every guitar holds a memory of music. Its strings once trembled with songs. Its wooden body carried rhythms that touched hearts. Now imagine that same guitar resting quietly in your garden. The music has changed, but it has not stopped. From its sound hole, succulents rise like notes of green. Vines curl along the neck as though finding their own melody. Flowers bloom where chords once echoed, painting silence with color. The guitar has become a bloom box, its song rewritten in petals and leaves. Transforming an old guitar into a planter is simpler than it seems. Begin with an instrument that is no longer playable, perhaps one found at a flea market or tucked away in storage. Hollow out the body if needed, and line it with a waterproof layer or cocoa liner to protect the wood from excess moisture. Fill it with lightweight potting soil, pressing it gently into the curves. Succulents are ideal, as they require little water and thrive in shallow containers. You can also mix in trailing plants like ivy or small flowering varieties, such as pansies for added charm. Prop the guitar upright against a fence or wall, or mount it slightly tilted for dramatic effect. Over time, vines can climb along the neck, creating the illusion of music flowing upward into the air. Place it where sunlight filters softly. Succulents adore light, but direct scorching heat may dry the soil too quickly. A gentle misting every few days keeps the arrangement fresh and thriving. What makes this project extraordinary is how it preserves memory. Every scratch in the wood, every faded fret mark becomes part of its new story. Guests who see it will pause, first surprised, then smiling, as if they can almost hear a melody hidden within the greenery. Children often tap the strings, expecting sound, and find instead the rustle of leaves. A different kind of music, but no less enchanting. Beyond beauty, the guitar bloom box teaches resilience. It shows us that art does not disappear. It only transforms. An instrument that once carried sound now carries life. A rhythm once played by hands is now played by roots and vines. And when the breeze moves gently across the plants, you may hear it. A soft song of renewal, reminding you that every ending is simply a chance to change instruments. At the edge of the garden, rest takes on a new meaning. Imagine a bench not built from polished timber or heavy carpentry, but from humble wooden pallets, materials once used to carry weight, now carrying life. The bench welcomes you to sit, yet it also blooms. Along its backrest, small pockets cradle soil, herbs, and flowers. Lavender spills like laughter, time stretches upward like memory, and blossoms wink between the slats as if secrets are growing alongside you. The pallet fairy bench is both practical and enchanting. It offers a seat to pause, breathe, and watch the garden, while also serving as a vertical garden that brings life closer to where you rest. To create it, you'll need only a few strong pallets, screws or nails, and a touch of imagination. Stack and secure the pallets to form a seat and backrest. Then attach small containers or fabric grow pockets along the back, filling them with soil and choosing plants that thrive in compact spaces. Herbs like basil, parsley, or rosemary work beautifully, as do cascading flowers such as petunias or nasturtiums. Position the bench in a spot where you can enjoy both sunlight and shade. Morning light will energize the plants, while afternoon shade keeps them from drying too quickly. Sitting there, you'll notice how close the garden feels, how fragrance leans in, how blossoms almost brush your shoulders. The bench does not separate you from nature. It invites you to join it. What makes this design so meaningful is the way it transforms labor into comfort. The pallets, once marked by heavy loads, now hold the gentlest of things. Flowers, fragrance, rest. Their rough grain tells a story of work, yet now they speak of renewal. Guests will be drawn to its rustic charm, often surprised to learn that something so inviting was built from what many would discard. Children may lean in to touch the herbs, releasing scent into the air. Friends may sit and linger, conversations mingling with the hum of bees nearby. And when you sit alone, the quiet feels full, filled with the sound of leaves moving, blossoms breathing, life unfolding at your shoulder. The pallet fairy bench reminds us that beauty doesn't always require wealth or polish. Sometimes it is born from what is near, what is simple, and what is remade with care. And in its quiet presence, you discover that rest itself can bloom. There is poetry in giving the humblest tools a stage of their own. Picture an old kitchen colander, once used to strain water from pasta, now hanging gently in the garden air. Through its tiny perforations, sunlight filters into a scatter of golden dots, and from its brim, herbs spill like fragrant curtains swaying in the breeze. Suspended together in a row, these colanders become chandeliers, turning a corner of the garden into a feast for the senses. The charm of this idea lies in both its whimsy and its practicality. With a few hooks, chains, and leftover colanders, you can create a canopy that feels like art while also supplying fresh herbs for your table. Begin by choosing colanders with interesting patterns of holes. Vintage metal ones often create the most beautiful light effects. Attach sturdy chains to their handles and hang them at varying heights from a pergola, tree branch, or beam. Fill each with potting soil, ensuring there's a liner or cocoa fiber base to keep soil from slipping out. Now comes the fun. Selecting herbs. Basil, thyme, and oregano will dangle gracefully, their fragrance filling the air each time the wind stirs. Mint adds a cool freshness, while rosemary's spires bring structure. The perforations allow water to drain naturally, making colanders perfect vessels for healthy growth. As the herbs grow, they cascade downward, creating lush green chandeliers that invite touch and scent. Imagine dining beneath them. As daylight streams through the holes, patterns of light dance across the table. In the evening, candles or solar lights can be placed below, casting playful shadows and giving the illusion that the herbs themselves are glowing. Guests will smile at the transformation, surprised at how something so ordinary has become so enchanting. Beyond beauty, the herb chandeliers are wonderfully functional. Need basil for a salad? Simply reach up and pluck a sprig. Cooking outdoors becomes a sensory ritual, fresh ingredients within arm's reach, their fragrance mingling with food and laughter. More than decoration, these colanders remind us that objects never truly lose their purpose. They only change it. Once they served kitchens, now they serve dreams. And in their new role, they prove that even the simplest tools can be lifted into elegance, scattering both light and life in the gentlest of ways. Every garden tells stories not only of flowers but of the vessels that hold them. Imagine an old wagon, its wheels no longer rolling, its handle pointing not to faraway roads but to the soil beneath. Once built for burden and movement, it now rests quietly, carrying a gentler cargo, wildflowers. From its bed, blooms spill outward in waves of yellow, purple, and crimson, tumbling like laughter into the grass. Rust freckles its frame, but rather than spoiling its beauty, the rust deepens its sense of story, a testament to journeys past. Transforming a wagon into a planter is both practical and poetic. Begin with a wagon, wheelbarrow, or even a handcart that has outlived its original purpose. Make sure the base has drainage holes, or drill a few to prevent water from collecting. Fill it with rich potting soil, mixing in compost for added nourishment. Then choose wildflowers. Zinnias, daisies, cosmos, or black-eyed Susans work beautifully, as they thrive in shallow soil and create a cascade of color. Plant them close together for fullness, allowing them to spill naturally over the wagon's sides. Placement matters. Set the wagon in a sunny corner where blooms can reach for the light throughout the day. Its rustic form pairs beautifully with meadows or grassy areas, where it looks as though it simply decided to pause and rest. Surround it with small stones or plant creeping thyme at its base, softening the edges and blending it into the landscape. Over time, the wagon seems less like an object and more like a character in the garden story. Children often climb near it, enchanted by its fairy tale quality, while adults smile at the blend of nostalgia and renewal. In summer, bees and butterflies will hover around the blossoms, turning the wagon into a lively stage where nature performs. Beyond its beauty, this project whispers a quiet truth. Stillness has value. A wagon that no longer moves still carries meaning, not in the miles it travels, but in the life it now sustains. It shows us that usefulness is never lost, it only transforms. And each time the flowers spill in radiant waves, you'll be reminded that joy can bloom in the most unexpected places, even in the rusted heart of an old wagon that simply decided to stay. Some of the most elegant borders are not carved from stone or built from wood, but discovered in the humblest of places. Imagine walking along a garden path where, instead of bricks, a ribbon of emerald glows from the ground. Row after row of green glass bottles, turned upside down and pressed into the soil, create a border that shimmers like jewels in the sunlight. Each one catches the light differently, some deep as forest shade, others pale like sea glass, and together, they guide your steps with quiet grace. The beauty of this design lies in its simplicity and resourcefulness. Empty wine or soda bottles, often tossed away, become treasures when placed side by side. To create your own border, begin by collecting bottles of similar size. Wash them well, remove any labels, and if you wish, soak them to give the glass a cleaner, more translucent finish. Dig a shallow trench along the edge of your path or flower bed. Then insert the bottles neck down into the soil, pressing firmly so they stand straight and secure. Spacing is up to you. A tight row creates a neat, continuous edge, while leaving small gaps allows plants to weave between the glass, softening the look. Over time, moss and soil may settle around the bottles, blending them naturally into the garden. The effect changes throughout the day. In the morning, the bottles gleam like dewdrops. In the afternoon, they scatter green light across the earth, and by dusk, they fade into gentle silhouettes that still mark the way. Practicality joins beauty here, too. The bottles act as a simple barrier to keep soil in place and prevent small plants from being trampled. And because they are recycled, they cost nothing but imagination. With variations in color, brown for warmth, clear for sparkle, you can play with different moods. Yet green remains the most magical, echoing the hues of leaves and trees. What makes this border truly enchanting is how it reframes the ordinary. A bottle once lifted in celebration now stands as a sentinel of the garden, carrying a memory of joy into each day. Together, they form not just an edge but a necklace around your plants, each bottle a jewel offered back to the earth. And as you walk along the path, guided by their glow, you realize that trash has indeed become treasure, not by changing its nature, but by simply being seen in a new light. In every kitchen, empty tins wait for a second chance. Once they carried beans, soup, or fruit, destined for the recycling bin. Yet in the garden, they can rise together, stacked and painted, into something joyful. A tower of herbs that breathes both fragrance and color into the air. Bright strokes of paint turn each can into a canvas, and from their rims spill basil, mint, thyme, and rosemary. It is practical, cheerful, and wonderfully alive. The painted tin can herb tower is proof that beauty doesn't need expensive materials. To create your own, start by gathering a handful of used tins in varying sizes. Wash them thoroughly, removing any sharp edges. Then, let your creativity run free with paint. Use acrylic or spray paint in bright shades: sunshine yellow, ocean blue, garden green. You can add playful patterns, stripes, or even hand-lettered names of the herbs. Once the paint dries, drill small drainage holes in the bottoms of the cans. Stacking the cans is part of the magic. You can arrange them in a pyramid shape, securing each level with strong adhesive or by driving a central rod through the stack for stability. Alternatively, place them on a wooden shelf or ladder to create a vertical arrangement that looks intentional and rustic. Fill each can with soil and tuck in your herbs, parsley leaning outward, mint trailing like a green cascade, rosemary standing tall like a sentinel. The tower is not only charming but also functional. It saves space, making it perfect for small gardens, patios, or balconies. Each can become its own little pot, easy to water and care for. As the plants grow, the tower bursts with scent and color, turning even the smallest corner into a miniature herb sanctuary. Imagine cooking outdoors, plucking fresh basil from a bright red can, or mint from a painted teal one. Guests will pause, drawn not only to the fragrance but to the playful, handmade feel. Children will be delighted by the colors, learning how something as simple as a tin can be transformed into life. More than decoration, this project is a reminder that nourishment isn't only found in what we eat, but in the joy of creation. The painted tin can herb tower celebrates both. It feeds the body with fresh flavors and feeds the spirit with a story. That even the simplest containers can hold abundance, and even scraps of metal can bloom with new purpose. Once upon a time, the radio carried voices across distance. Songs drifting through static, stories told in crackling tones, laughter shared across invisible waves. Now imagine that same wooden radio resting in your garden. Its knobs faded, its speakers silent. Instead of music, succulents rise where sound once lived. Jade rosettes nestle in the dial, tiny burgundy leaves spill across the front, and ivy trails from the speaker as if the radio has tuned itself to a softer, greener frequency. The retro radio succulent diorama is both nostalgic and innovative, reminding us that memory can bloom as vividly as plants. To make one, start with an old radio no longer working. Thrift shops, flea markets, or even forgotten attics often hold these treasures. Remove the internal electronics, leaving a hollow shell. Line the inside with a waterproof barrier such as plastic sheeting, then fill it with lightweight potting soil suitable for succulents. Choose plants that echo the character of the radio. Echeveria and jade add structure, while trailing sedum or string of pearls can spill downward like strands of music. Arrange them thoughtfully, as though composing a song. Taller plants in the back, cascading ones in front, with textures and colors creating rhythm. Over time, the plants settle into the frame, softening its lines and blending past with present. Placement matters here. The radio, once an indoor companion, now belongs in a bright but sheltered garden spot. Direct sunlight for half the day will keep succulents healthy without scorching them. Indoors, a sunny windowsill will transform the radio into a conversation piece that bridges nostalgia and nature. Mist occasionally, water sparingly, and watch the plants thrive in their new wooden stage. Beyond its beauty, the project stirs something deeper. Guests will pause, recognizing the shape of the radio, smiling at the unexpected sight of life growing where sound once lived. Older visitors may even remember the voices and songs such radios once carried, finding comfort in seeing them renewed instead of forgotten. The retro radio no longer sings in notes, yet its silence is not empty. It hums differently, through leaves that rustle like quiet static, through blossoms that shine like melodies held in color instead of sound. And in that transformation lies the heart of the idea, that every object carries more than one story, and sometimes the sweetest ones are written by time, memory, and the gentle patience of plants. There is something enchanting about a bridge. It suggests passage, connection, the crossing from one place to another. Now imagine such a bridge, not made from steel or stone, but from driftwood softened by years of travel through rivers and seas. Each piece carries its own story, tides, storms, or currents, and together they arc quietly across a shallow bed of pebbles in your garden. Moss creeps along the sides, ferns curl beneath, and suddenly the space feels like it belongs to a secret world where unseen travelers might walk at twilight. The Driftwood Ferry Bridge is a project born from simplicity and imagination. Gather branches, twigs, or driftwood pieces collected from riverbanks, beaches, or even woodland trails. Choose those with natural curves, textures, and weathering, as these details give the bridge its character. Begin by laying a foundation of stones or bricks to raise the ends. Then arrange and tie or glue the driftwood pieces together to form an arch. Smaller branches can be placed across the top like planks, creating the walkway. Set your bridge over a dry riverbed of pebbles, a tiny stream, or simply a bed of moss. Add miniature plants nearby, ferns, creeping thyme, or baby's tears, to soften the edges and enhance the sense of scale. A sprinkle of gravel forms the illusion of a path, inviting the imagination to wander further. The bridge doesn't need to be large. Even a foot long can feel magical in the right setting. What makes this idea powerful is its intimacy. It doesn't overwhelm the garden. It whispers. Children crouch low, peering across as though fairies might cross at any moment. Adults pause, remembering that wonder often lies not in grand gestures but in small ones. By day, sunlight strikes the weathered wood, creating lace-like shadows. By dusk, a small lantern nearby can turn it into a glowing passage of dreams. Beyond beauty, building the bridge is grounding. The act of arranging driftwood teaches patience, balance, and attention to detail. Each branch must find its place, leaning into the others, forming strength from connection. And in that process, the garden gains not only a charming feature but a symbol, that even what drifts aimlessly can find purpose, and even the smallest crossings can carry us into wonder. At first glance, it looks like something built by skilled carpenters. An elegant pergola rising at the edge of the garden, vines curling gracefully over its beams, light filtering through in shifting patterns. But step closer and you discover its bones are nothing more than gathered branches, bound together with patience rather than wealth. This is the charm of a rustic branch pergola. Beauty drawn not from polished timber but from the humble language of the woods. To create one, you don't need expensive supplies, only sturdy branches, rope or twine, and a vision. Begin by selecting 4 strong posts to serve as the pergola's frame. These can be thick branches, stripped of leaves but still bearing their natural curves and textures. Anchor them firmly into the ground, either by burying them deep or setting them in concrete for stability. Across the top, lash horizontal branches to form beams. Smaller branches can then be woven or tied between, creating a lattice that welcomes climbing plants. The magic unfolds when vines take hold. Jasmine, morning glory, or grapevines will eagerly climb the rough bark, weaving green with brown until the structure feels less like a man-made shelter and more like a gift of nature itself. Over time, the pergola transforms into a living canopy. Sunlight filters through in fragments, dappling the stones or grass below with lace-like patterns. To sit here is to rest under both roof and sky, shaded yet open, sheltered yet free. This pergola is more than a structure, it is a stage. It can frame an outdoor dining table, a cozy bench, or even a hammock swaying gently in the breeze. Guests will marvel at how something so elegant rose from what others might see as yard waste. Children will climb beneath it, laughing as they watch sunlight dance through the leaves. And in the quiet of evening, when the vines sway softly, the pergola becomes a sanctuary, inviting reflection and peace. What makes this project deeply meaningful is its humility. The branches, once scattered and overlooked, come together into timeless grace. They remind us that richness isn't always purchased. Sometimes it is crafted from what we already have. And as you linger beneath its shelter, you feel the truth. Beauty often lies not in perfection, but in the quiet power of transformation. And now, dear friends, our gentle path together reaches its evening glow. What began as scraps and forgotten objects has become something tender and alive. Stories of gardens, stories of renewal, stories that remind us to see possibility in what is near. Here at TERAFLORA Studio, we believe that beauty does not need to be loud. It is often soft, like moss growing slowly across stone, or the quiet shimmer of glass catching sunlight at dusk. As you step away from this moment, I invite you to carry a little of that softness with you. Let it remind you that every broken pot, every old tool, every ordinary object can be a doorway into wonder. Your garden, your home, even the smallest balcony can hold a touch of magic if you are willing to look gently and create with care. This content has been composed with the assistance of AI, and it feels important to say it openly. Technology has helped weave these words, but the spirit within them belongs to you, the dreamer, the maker, the one who brings life into ideas. Together, we share not only projects, but also a way of seeing the world with more kindness and imagination. If today's journey has brought you peace, or if a spark of inspiration has settled in your heart, I warmly invite you to subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio. In doing so, you join a circle of kindred spirits who believe in gentle beauty, thoughtful creation, and the joy of transforming what is simple into something meaningful. Until we meet again, may your days be filled with calm light, your hands with stories worth shaping, and your heart with the quiet certainty that even the smallest act of creation can bring new life to the world around you.